DarkEcho production. Some stories are forgotten. Others refuse to stay buried. Blackwater Lake. Episode 2. The Reflection Smiled. 3 days can change almost anything. Bruises begin to fade. Nightmares become harder to remember. Even fear has a way of convincing you it never existed. For Alyssa, those 3 days felt almost normal. Almost. She went back to work, answered emails, smiled at customers, laughed at conversations she barely listened to. Every hour that passed made Blackwater Lake feel farther away, like waking from a strange dream. By Thursday afternoon, she almost believed nothing had happened. Almost. She walked into the office restroom. Bright white lights buzzed softly overhead. The room smelled of soap and fresh paper towels. Everything looked ordinary. She washed her hands, looked up. Her reflection looked back. She smiled. Her reflection smiled too. Perfect. Perfectly normal. She reached for a paper towel. Behind her, the restroom door opened. A woman walked in, mid-30s, dark business suit, hair pulled neatly behind her head. She offered a polite smile. Alyssa nodded. The woman stopped beside her. "That's beautiful." Alyssa looked up. "I'm sorry?" "The necklace." Alyssa frowned. She touched her neck. Nothing. She wasn't wearing a necklace. The woman looked confused. "I could have sworn." She stopped. Her eyes never left the mirror. Color drained from her face. "What is that?" Alyssa turned toward the mirror. The sinks, the lights, the stalls, the woman, herself. Everything looked normal, except around Alyssa's neck hung a long strand of dripping black hair, not resting, wrapped, slowly tightening, as though someone standing behind her was gently pulling it tighter. Alyssa spun around. Nobody. The restroom was empty. The woman was gone. The stall doors stood open. Not a sound. Only the soft buzz of the lights. Her breathing grew faster. She looked back at the mirror. Nothing. No black hair. No woman. Only her own reflection. She hurried out into the hallway. Halfway back to her desk, she stopped. Something felt wrong. Not outside. Inside. She closed her eyes, trying to remember the woman's face, her eyes, her voice, the color of her suit. Nothing. She couldn't remember a single detail, only that someone had been there. Alyssa turned around. She walked back to the restroom. It was empty. She found the receptionist. "Hey, the woman who just came out of the restroom." The receptionist frowned. "What woman?" "The one in the dark suit." The receptionist shook her head. "You've been the only person back there." Alyssa laughed, a nervous laugh. "Right. I must be more tired than I thought." She walked away, but something inside her wouldn't let it go. Every window she passed caught her attention. Every polished surface made her slow down. Every dark computer monitor felt like it was waiting for her to look. When she finally reached her desk, her computer screen had gone black. Sleep mode. She could see her reflection, the office behind her, rows of desks, coworkers walking past. Then, someone leaned down behind her chair. So close, their face should have been next to hers. Alyssa froze. She didn't move. She stared at the screen. The figure didn't move either. Slowly, very slowly, its head tilted, just a little, as though it was curious. A voice called her name. "Alyssa?" She blinked. The computer screen came back to life. The reflection was gone. Only her coworker stood beside her. "You okay?" Alyssa forced a smile. "Yeah, I think I just need some sleep." Her coworker nodded, but as he walked away, he glanced back one last time, because for just a moment, he could have sworn someone else had been standing behind her. That night, none of them slept well. Tyler woke suddenly. He wasn't sure what had pulled him from sleep. The apartment was dark, silent. Not the kind of silence that helps you rest, the kind that makes you listen. He lay there without moving, waiting for something, anything. Nothing. No traffic outside. No humming from the refrigerator. Not even the air conditioner cycling on. The silence felt wrong. Tyler let out a tired sigh. "Forget it," he whispered, as if saying the words could somehow push the memories back into the lake. He reached for the glass of water on his nightstand. Empty. With another sigh, he climbed out of bed. The hallway was dark. Moonlight spilled across the living room floor. His apartment had always felt comfortable, familiar. Tonight, it felt like someone else already knew the way through it. He walked into the kitchen, filled the glass, turned around, and froze. Across the room, the television was off. Its black screen reflected the entire apartment, the couch, the hallway, the kitchen. Tyler. He stared for only a moment, then smiled to himself. "I'm losing it." He raised the glass, took a drink. When he looked back, something had changed. His reflection was still holding the glass. Tyler wasn't. His hand slowly lowered. The reflection didn't. It continued drinking. One slow sip, then another. Tyler's heart began to race. He stood perfectly still. The reflection finally lowered its glass. It looked directly at him. Then, very slowly, it smiled. Not a friendly smile, not an angry one, a knowing smile, as though it had been waiting for him to notice. Tyler stumbled backward. The glass slipped from his hand. It shattered across the kitchen floor. The sound echoed through the apartment. The television went black again. Only his own reflection remained. Breathing hard, Tyler looked away. When he looked back, everything was normal. He didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, his phone buzzed. One message from Alyssa. "Can we meet?" Nothing else. No explanation. Only 3 words. Tyler stared at the message for a long time. Then he replied, "I was about to ask you the same thing." Across town, Mia stood in front of her bathroom mirror. She was brushing her hair. Slow, steady strokes. Without warning, the lights flickered, just once. She looked up. Her reflection kept brushing its hair. Mia had stopped. She watched without breathing. 1, 2, 3 more strokes. Then, the reflection slowly turned its eyes toward her. Not its head, only its eyes. The lights snapped back to full brightness. The reflection matched her again. Mia dropped the brush. It hit the sink with a sharp crack. Somewhere across the city, Jacob closed his medicine cabinet. For just an instant, he saw someone standing behind him. When he turned, the room was empty. And Nolan paused a football game to get another drink. When he returned, the television was still paused, except everyone on the screen was looking directly at him. Friday evening arrived quietly. Rain fell across the city. Not heavy, just enough to blur headlights and cover the streets with thin sheets of water. Alyssa pulled into their usual coffee shop. The place hadn't changed. Same brick walls, same old music, same smell of roasted coffee. It felt safe, normal. One by one, they arrived. Tyler, Jacob, Mia, Nolan. 5 friends, just like before. Only now, none of them looked rested. Dark circles beneath tired eyes, forced smiles, long silences. For nearly 5 minutes, nobody mentioned Blackwater Lake. Instead, they talked about work, traffic, weekend plans, anything except the thing that had brought them together. Finally, Alyssa set her coffee down. "I've been seeing things." Silence. She looked around the table. "I know how that sounds, but it's happening, in reflections." Nobody laughed. Nobody smiled. Tyler looked down at his coffee, then quietly said, "My television." Everyone looked at him. It wasn't acting right. He hesitated. "My reflection kept moving." No one spoke. Mia slowly wrapped both hands around her cup. My mirror looked at me. Jacob swallowed. The medicine cabinet. I saw someone behind me. Nolan didn't say anything. He simply unlocked his phone, opened his photo gallery, and placed it on the table. It was a picture of his living room, nothing unusual, until he zoomed in. The paused television showed the football game, the players, the scoreboard, the crowd. Every single face in the stadium was looking directly at the camera. Not at the field, not at the players, at him. I deleted it, Nolan whispered. It came back. The table fell silent. Rain tapped softly against the windows. For the first time since leaving Blackwater Lake, they all understood the same thing. It wasn't just Alyssa. It wasn't stress. It wasn't their imagination. Something had changed. Tyler leaned back. I keep thinking about that warning. Everyone looked at him. Never look too long into the water. Jacob frowned. But we left. We're hundreds of miles away. Tyler nodded. I know. But what if the warning was never about the lake? Nobody answered, because nobody wanted to finish that thought. An elderly waitress approached the table. She smiled warmly. You folks need anything else? Tyler looked up. No, thank you. She nodded. Then she stopped. Her smile slowly disappeared. She stared past them, not at the table, at the window, behind Alyssa. Honey, she whispered, who's standing outside in the rain? Every one of them turned. The sidewalk was empty. Cars passed. People hurried by, holding umbrellas. No one stood outside. They looked back at the waitress. She was still staring, confused. I could have sworn there was a woman. Long, wet, black hair, standing right behind your friend. Alyssa's heart stopped. The waitress blinked, looked again. Never mind. Guess, Gicky, my eyes aren't what they used to be. She walked away. Nobody at the table said a word. Outside, the rain continued, falling. Tiny puddles formed along the sidewalk. None of them noticed that in every puddle, 5 reflections stood together. And behind them stood a 6th. Nobody finished their coffee. Nobody felt like talking anymore. One by one, they stood, walked outside. The rain had almost stopped. Only a soft mist hung in the air. For a while, they simply stood beside their vehicles, trying to convince themselves they had an explanation. Finally, Jacob spoke. We're missing something. Tyler nodded. The waitress. She saw her. She described the same woman. Alyssa looked down. The hair. Nobody wanted to say it, but they were all thinking the same thing. This wasn't happening only to them. Someone else had seen it too. Nolan broke the silence. What if this has happened before? The question hung in the air. Mia looked at Tyler. The cabin. It wasn't new. It had been there for a long time. And that mirror, it looked older than everything else. Tyler slowly nodded. There has to be someone who knows. Jacob snapped his fingers. The gas station. Everyone looked at him. The old place, about 20 miles before the cabin. The guy working there, he looked like he'd lived there forever. For the first time all evening, they had a direction. Tyler pulled out his phone, opened the map. Blackwater Lake. Nothing. No results. He frowned. Tried again. Blackwater Lake. Cabins. Nothing. No cabins. No road. No campground. No photographs. No reviews. Nothing. Jacob laughed nervously. That's impossible. "We were there." Mia reached across the table. "Try the address." Tyler typed it in. The map loaded. A blue dot appeared. Then, without warning, the screen went black. Every phone on the table went black at the exact same moment. Nobody moved. 5 dark screens, 5 reflections, 5 frightened faces. Then, all 5 phones vibrated. Once. Nobody had received a text. Nobody had received a call. Slowly, each screen lit up. Not with their home screens, not with their apps. Only a photograph. The cabin, the dock, taken from somewhere out on the lake, far enough away that the entire shoreline could be seen. The image was moving. Not much, just enough to realize it wasn't a photograph. It was live. The water gently rippled. Clouds drifted across the sky. The empty dock sat quietly at the edge of the lake. Nobody spoke. Nobody breathed. Then, very slowly, someone walked onto the dock. Long, black, wet hair. The woman stopped at the very end. She wasn't looking toward the cabin. She was looking out across the lake, toward whoever was filming. Without warning, she lifted one hand, not waving, pointing straight at them. Every phone went black. The room fell silent. Then, one notification appeared on Tyler's screen. One new voicemail. He frowned. My phone never rang." His thumb hovered over the message. The voicemail was exactly 8 seconds long. He pressed play. At first, there was only static. Then, water, gentle waves, someone breathing, very slowly, very close. Then, a man's voice, old, weak, barely a whisper. "If you're hearing this, she knows. You looked too long." Silence. The message ended. No name, no number, no caller ID, only an empty screen. Outside, the rain began falling again. Across the parking lot, a shallow puddle formed beneath a streetlight. 5 reflections stood together. The 6th was gone, because she wasn't behind them anymore. She was standing between them.